In 1962, Ian Grice graduated from Avondale with a diploma of accountancy. He has worked and studied extensively overseas, serving with commitment to people and processes. He is this year's citation recipient for the class of 1962. Ian, congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's start where you are now. I'd love to know where you and your wife, Georgina, are actually living at the moment.
We live in the beautiful Sunshine Coast, which is about an hour's drive north of Brisbane, and we're enjoying it here. It's a non-Adventist village, but we chose that deliberately because we wanted to have an opportunity to witness.
Yeah, the service continues, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So tell me, what are some of the things that you and George have been up to in your retirement years? Because you've been retired for a little while now, haven't you?
Oh, yes, quite a while now. Well, we took an assignment in Thailand as acting vice president for finances at our university there, and we enjoyed that immensely. I, for a while, was going back and forth to Hong Kong because some of my former students there were working with the church and thinking of entering into the China healthcare market. And so I was chairing committees for them and encouraging them there. And let's see, well, I was on the preaching plan for a little while I could still drive. We had an opportunity to visit our children overseas too. They both live in America now, but at one stage, one of them lived in Belgium. So we've seen a little bit of the world apart from traveling for the church too.
Oh, how lovely. So take me back a little bit. How did you and Georgine meet?
Okay, in Adelaide, after I finished at Avondale, went down there, and there was this cute little girl there that was very much involved in youth activities. And so the sparks flew, and here we are.
How long have you been married?
Oh, my. Okay, that would be about 58 years now, I think.
It's very, very impressive. So I know that you've said you haven't always been a Christian. So tell me how it actually came about that you sort of found Christ and you became a Christian.
Okay, that's a very long story there, but if you have a look at the edition of the Signs, October 2005, you'll get the full story there. But just to make it brief, I was in Mergen. I'm from Gympie, but we had an accounting office in Gympie, and they had branch offices. So from Mergen, I was caring for that district there, and I was a hard-living person at that time, and probably after some hard work and a lot of partying afterwards, I had this experience one evening when I felt that some evil presence was in the room, and I could remember my mother, who was an Adventist, telling me that if you sin away the Holy Spirit, then you're on devil's territory. So I was scared. And for the first time, I got down on my knees and said, God, I need to be rescued. And if you've got any interest in me at all, you're going to have to take me because I like my lifestyle. And so everything fell apart from me in the office. The girl that I've been going with for years folded up on me. And so I thought, wow, the Lord really wants me there. I went down to see SMU Utley. He was conference president. And I said, if you get me into Avondale, then I'll go right now. But I felt fairly safe because I knew that the admissions had finished. So I was feeling quite safe about that. But the next day, Utley phoned me and said, I'm on the board and you're in. Pack your bags. I went unwillingly to Avondale.
How interesting. So when you came to Avondale, you would have been a new committed Christian. Tell me about some of the early challenges that you may have had with that transformation.
Well, I was a mature student. I'd been working for 7 years and had my own clients, and I felt like the rules there were just too much for me. You can't go to the village, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I rebelled in that first year. I did everything possible to try and get thrown out. But I think that behind the scenes, they must have seen some potential because they tolerated me, which I'm happy about.
Am I allowed to ask what you might have done to try and get kicked out?
Well, I used to march off to the village, and many years later, Des Hills, you know Des, was coming from Africa, and he was going through Bombay back to Australia. And so we had a chat, and he said, "You know, we knew that you used to sneak out to the village." And I said, "Well, you should have known because I didn't hide it. I walked out."
Quite the rebel.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
You've spent a lot of time overseas working and studying. In that time, between Australia and where you've been overseas, and you might want to sort of share where you've been, who have some of your mentors been in your professional life and maybe even in your personal life?
Yes, well, mentors, so we'd start off with Claude Judd. Claude, after Avondale, I had my real conversion, I suppose, in the second year at Avondale. And that's where I caught the vision of wanting to work for the church, regardless of where they sent me. And so there was one day that they phoned me in Adelaide and said, "We'd like you to go to India." And I said, "Okay." And they said, "Well, don't you think you should consult with your wife?" And I said, "Oh, she'll be okay." And they said, "I think that you better talk with your wife." Well, I talked with Claude too. And Claude encouraged me, and he was encouraging right from the time that I arrived in Adelaide. Well, that was the first one. The second one would be Dr. Roscoe Lowry, who was the president of the Southern Asia Division when I went there. He was very helpful to me in orienting me to mission service, along with so many of the national leaders too. They were so beautiful. And let me see. One of those leaders was Dr. Christo. That was the first national leader that they had in Southern Asia. And I worked with him at the division level later on as the treasurer. And he taught me such a lot. Let's see, who else would be there? Yes, Dr. O.C. Edwards, when I transferred to the Asia Pacific Division as the treasurer there, he was a godly man. I learned a lot from him about practical Christian living. And then finally, I'd say Dr. H.E. Clifford. He was somebody that will be very familiar to people from the SAN, built that 12-story tower. And he was a great mentor for me when I came to manage the SAN.
It's so nice to hear that you've had so many great people around you, because I know, you've been working in accountancy, treasury, management for such a long time.
And teaching.
And teaching, yes. It's often an ideal or a hope, when you start out to change the world. What have been some of the greatest learnings you've had through the years?
Changing the world. Well, first of all, I'm not the sum total of all wisdom. And it pays to do more listening than talking. That's one of the things that I learned. The second thing that I would have learned would have been consensus leads to achievement. Consensus. And then finally, to model what you want to achieve. If you model what you want to achieve, that inspires people.
Well, Ian, you are a lifelong learner. You've served others with conviction and with dedication. Your commitment to improving processes and your care for others in all that you've done has been transformational. So I just want to congratulate you on being the citation recipient for the class of 1962.
Thank you, and I'd like to express my appreciation to the class of 62 for being such a fun group to be with in that year.
Well, there's more to Ian's story. I encourage you to head to the Avondale Alumni Facebook page or to our website to read his citation. And if you'd like to send him a message or just give a shout out to Ian, comment on this post, or you can send me an email at alumni@avondale.edu.au.